So our first topic we'll go ahead and talk about is, how we want to start the show, how we want to give it up to the people. Man, okay, this is the biggest one. We'll talk about the Hitbox controversy. So one day, as everybody was, getting ready for bed and, selling their affairs for the day, Capcom was like, the timeline been too sleep for my taste. So we gonna go ahead and drop this new news. So next thing you know, they came and basically said, we just gonna put it in simple terms that, hey, those controllers that has the SOCD cleaning to where down plus up doesn't equal neutral. You got to stop that. So basically, they was talking about any type of controller that's basically whatever you want to call it. Some people call it levelist. Some people call it all button controllers. Some people call it different things. But in layman terms, we can say hitbox. Everybody know what
Right.
hitbox is. So on hitbox, we know that what SOCD basically stands for simultaneous operating cardinal directions, something like that. But I know it's basically cardinal directions. It's talking about the opposite cardinal direction. Simultaneous opposite cardinal directions. There it is. So
Yeah.
basically, if you push left and right at the same time, which are opposing cardinal directions, you get neutral. But when you press down and up at the same time on an all button controller, most of all of them are going to give you up. Well, Capcom is basically saying we ain't doing that no more around here. Street Fighter 6 is out. We have the technology and the science. We can handle what signal comes to the game from your controller ourselves. And the reason why hardwares used to do it back in the day, they made sure that the cleaning of the cardinal directions came from their end on the hardware end was because old games, when playing back in the day, people were playing on like arcades, you know, PlayStation controllers and stuff like that. It's basically impossible to do an opposing cardinal direction at the same time. If you're playing on an arcade cabinet, how could you press left and right at the same time? How could you press up
That's
and down
true.
at the same time? You can't. You know, PlayStation One controllers they didn't have. See, some PlayStation controllers, I remember starting off didn't even have the analog stick on them.
No,
Some
they
of
did
them.
not.
Yeah, so when you're just using a directional pad, it's literally impossible to press forward and back or up and down at the same time. Like you literally couldn't do it. It felt like you would break the controller. Now, recently, when we get to like areas where most, or if not all, controllers are coming with the analog and the D pad, you can do down and up with the analog stick and you can kind of get it, so that it's kind of like a new thing. But Capcom is coming and saying now, like, look, we gonna handle that on the software end. And that basically sent the FGC into an uproar because, as you know, many people are playing Hitbox. Many people are playing with button controllers. So that's just something that kind of threw the FGC into a frenzy. But it seems like Capcom has kind of bitten off more than they can chew because yes, you got rid of instantaneous flash kicks by Guile, let's just say, but you open up a whole nother can of worms of like shortcut DPs. I mean, shoot, Hitbox showed off that with the new down up equals neutral, they
Hmm.
basically doing Korean backdash in Street Fighter. So
Yep.
like like
Yep.
it's crazy. So how you guys feeling about that so far, man? It's something that had the FGC in an uproar. So what do our very intelligent hosts have to say about that?
I saw this, and I think like everybody else, when I first saw, I thought they was like they're banning hitboxes from like just get them out of here. Not at all. We don't want them at all. Then I watched a video, Brian This video. He was explaining it more, and it's something that I haven't been the most familiar with. Like I know that there's different things you can do on the hitbox. I've seen like stuff people do in Marvel with the hitbox, like some charge stuff. Like somebody showed with Hulk, like being able to do his gamma waves, like super, like just basically one after the other. Um,
Instantaneous.
and So I haven't actually played one myself either. So that's it's kind of I don't have a lot of experience with it. I think the only person here on this panel is E that has had experience with the hitbox. I do want to get one or maybe even try the snack box. Um, But I mean, like the past few months, like it's been an uproar. Like the past, I know, like at least year or so, of people saying like, "Oh, Hitbox is cheating," and this, that, and the third, and
Right.
they wanted them like, "Hey, maybe we should get Hitbox banned." And I was thinking, I'm like, I don't think it's that deep because I like let's take Street Fighter for example. Most of the people that were like top players play on pad, so it's like if you're gonna ban anything, maybe ban pad. Like Punk, I know I've seen Punk play on a arcade stick. I think he has a hitbox as well. But if I'm not mistaken, I think he still mainly plays pad. I don't. It's like probably arguably the best Street Fighter 5 player in the world. He plays on a pad. Knuckle Dude. We even had people in the past like Luffy playing on this. That man was playing on an OG PlayStation pad. At the time was like PS3 and a PS4. So I don't know, man. I don't think it was that deep. I mean, and also with all these crazy like super execution things, I don't think everybody's going to be doing that. You might have a certain select handful of people that can do those things, but I'm pretty sure like some crazy like man, that's like cheating. I'm sure that everybody won't be able to do that consistently in a match. And again, it's not like hitbox just automatically makes you win. You have to get it, you have to learn it, and then translate what you know to that peripheral. So I don't think it's to the point that like people think it's cheating, but this was something that I didn't think would happen. I actually thought that maybe I had an idea of what they would probably do before this event happened. But I mean, just like Rexon said, now that they've like, well, you can't handle that now. We got it. We'll do it on in house. And now it's like, well, oh, maybe we don't understand this as much as maybe we thought we did because now now you got KBD and Street Fighter. You got Ryu doing the Hadoken shuffle. So I don't know, man. It's like because I saw that and like you can do stuff like that in certain games, but it's like it's very specific, especially like with the controller that you can't like especially arcade stick. That's like the main one. But like a controller, you can press like a D-pad, and some people like use the analog stick. Like people have done that in like MK, like to do like instant air fireballs. People are like just they'll tap the analog and like press forward on the D-pad, which actually is kind of hard. It takes some practice to get used to that because like just imagine playing a fighting game where you're moving from D-pad to the analog stick. That's gonna take a while to get used to. So again, even stuff like that, not everybody's doing it. Like I said, I was kind of surprised to hear this. But I mean, maybe Capcom feel like this is the best thing. Like, hey, we'll do this, so you can't like come up with any cheap tactics. Nobody's out here doing perfect frame one flash kicks and sonic booms. Because really, a lot of that, what I heard, like I usually heard Guile in the conversation of this. It was always Guile, like the charge stuff, like charge characters. It's like, man, you can do perfect frames of sonic booms, and you can stand up and flash kick at the same time, all while holding back. It's like, you know, so I guess they want to alleviate that type of stuff because I mean there's multiple charge caddies in these games. So I don't know, man. I just hope that maybe this can get alleviated and maybe they'll find some way to like, make it to where okay, this is a even playing ground for everybody in terms of like who's like being satisfied on Capcom's part and Hitbox. But like we said, now we seeing some crazier stuff. So it's like, hey man, you don't want to be like, well, we don't want you to do this, and now we make it worse than what it was. So um, to me, I still don't think it was the end of the world. I think it could have been fine the way it was. Because again, like I didn't see hitbox players always winning everything. So that's my 2 cents on the situation, man.
Well, it really has to be something with Street Fighter 6, right? Like
Yeah.
there has to be something in Street Fighter 6 that makes them want to say like, hey, opposing cardinal directions have to be neutral.
Oh, there
And
sure is. It's called
yeah,
$1 million.
well, yeah. Brian L says
Yeah.
somebody must have
Yeah.
Guile in the office and was killing folks on the hitbox, and they was just like, "Look, bro, that's no."
Or
Yeah.
maybe they isn't I think drive rush is forward, right?
So what?
Maybe I think drive rush is forward, if I'm not mistaken.
I'm not sure.
I haven't. I think I've heard it's like forward. I don't know if it's just forward by itself or like forward after an attack you do. But
Mhm.
maybe they're thinking like that could get cheap. Maybe people are holding block and then being able to like drive rush. I don't know, something crazy. I don't know.
I mean, hitbox does help you become less human. I mean, when you're playing on when back in the day when we were playing on D pads and you had to if you wanted to do a flash kick, and Brian F explained this, there was gonna be a frame where you stood up
Stand up.
before you did the flash kick. But with Hitbox, that's non-existent. It's perfect, you know. So, maybe they just feel like, hey, it's taken away from the human. It's so many things they could feel. I mean, it's so many different things that could happen that make you want to, snipe the all button controllers. So, but what's your thoughts on E?
Well, for me, like, in my opinion, I'm kind of on this tip where, like, I understand, people don't like the whole, perfect flash kicks and stuff like that. But I mean, and I'm also of the mind that it's kind of like what happens when you don't like something in, like, or in the FGC. Well, I'm just going to complain about it until they change the rules. And that's pretty much what I feel like happened here. Is like people complaining about Hitbox being a cheat box and this, that, and the third. And basically, it's like, there was enough buzz surrounding it that Capcom knew that if somebody came in and let's say that they won the whole tournament, like on Capcom Pro Tour with a hitbox, and then people that would all throw them immediately into question. Oh, well, he was using a hitbox, so of course he won. And this, it's a whole lot of like drama and consternation. So there's already drama and consternation surrounding it anyway. So that would just like make the argument even worse. Um, I got to be honest. I mean, me personally, I've never used that ever in any fighting game that I've played. I've never done that. I use some of like the shortcuts and stuff, but only because it's some inputs are easier on Hitbox, but some aren't as easy as I would like. And so having a shortcut so I can do it easier is better. Because I mean, when it comes down to it's like I'm not sure what I'm not exactly sure what people think a controller is for, but let me explain it to you. The idea
Mm,
is to translate your thoughts onto the screen. Like, that's the whole point. I've said this a million times. Like, the goal isn't to, show everybody how good you are with like, oh man, like his inputs are so good. Like, I mean, that's no, what I mean, your inputs can be really great and all that, and you can like, oh man, I did this combo, you doing this, but if you lost the match, nobody cares. Um, and what the idea is to make the transition between what you're thinking and what your character is doing on screen as smooth as possible. So if you have a controller that does that, then I mean that's exactly what you want. I mean, think about it this way: if you're driving race cars and the idea is to make a fast car that beats everybody else, and then somebody makes a really fast car that beats everybody else, like let's say it's not even beating everybody consistently, but it's beating people sometimes. It's not even like like we said before, it's not even like a whole lot of people are just like outright just creaming people who are using like pad and stick. It's like, it's pretty even, so but instead of saying, hey, you know what, maybe we need to like I don't know, maybe make our controllers a little better, I got an idea. Let's make sure these guys slow down for everybody else. Like, they can't do this. You can't do like simultaneous inputs. I'm not saying that it's necessarily a bad thing, but it's just kind of like, I mean, if we start here, where does it end, right? Where does it end? Like, you give this, and then what other inputs are you going to take? Well, you can't have a shortcut for Shoryukens. You can't have a shortcut for 360s and stuff like that. We do the same thing with fighting game characters, where you take a character that was good and people complain and whine until it's like, okay, now we're going to nerf this character, and now they're trash, and you know what I mean? I mean, like, you laugh, but it's true. Like, it's true. Like, you take a character that was really, really good, and it's like, yeah, we're just going to nerf him into the ground. Like, we got to take away this and this and this because that's what everybody complained about, and now the character's garbage, and now nobody wants to play them anymore. And you can get to the situation where you're like, man, like, I don't even want to play Hitbox anymore, even though like it's better for my wrists and stuff like that. I think it looks cooler. I like the aesthetic. I can't even. It's not even viable anymore because you took all this stuff away. I'm not a huge fan of that, man. I think.
Random question. Random
Yeah.
question. Didn't Gold Lewis come out in Guilty Gear Strive, and he was somebody that was very difficult to play on Hitbox?
I mean, I mean, at least in my experience, it was difficult, like trying to get used to playing that character on Hitbox, because it's the Wheel of Fortune, man. it's the Wheel of Fortune, and it's less about like going in a circle. It's more about you have to remember the pattern and do it properly on the hitbox, at least as far as I know. I mean, there could be a better shortcut for it, but I mean, man, like even the shortcuts aren't exactly the easiest to do for 360s, or even like half circles, like going half circle from forward, it's like back, down, down, forward, like a half circle going that way, or even going the opposite way. Okay, fine. But doing like a half circle that goes down, back, is like back, up, forward. That's a completely different story, man. I mean, for me, it's difficult. It's difficult, man. And some of those like shortcuts are kind of needed, man. It's not even like, oh man, like you're such an advantage. Like, nah, man, this is just I need what in order to make this work properly, you kind of sometimes you need a shortcut, what some people would consider a shortcut. You know, it's just another process of doing something on a different controller. I would say, you know, I've gotten complaints like this from people before about like, you know, hitbox and everything. I'm like, you know, I mean, a lot of people have sticks and stuff like that. A lot of people have pad, and some people have hitbox, you know. And if the hitbox is a better control scheme, then why aren't you using that? You know, I mean, if it was such a better control scheme that completely destroyed the competition, why aren't you using it? Probably because it's all about who's using the controller, you know. I mean, not everybody clicks with hitbox like that. I don't know, man. Like I said, I'm not really for the whole thing where like we're sitting here and we're just going to complain about something until it gets changed, especially when it's to the detriment of somebody else. You know, I think like we were talking about doing like a perfect like flash kick. I mean, if you can do a perfect flash kick, I mean, you can do a perfect flash kick. I mean, that's just the way the controller works. If you want to do a perfect flash kick, just get a hitbox. If not, what are you complaining about? You know? Like, why? What are you even going to complain about if you say it's out here, it's readily available for people to buy? Some of them you can make for cheaper than what it used to be. Like, it used to cost a pretty penny to make a hitbox now, or you know, a leverless controller. It's not that expensive now. So I don't know. I mean, even if I wasn't using hitbox, I'd kind of feel like why the whole like thing, like, you know, trying to vilify people for playing hitbox, you know, and all that. I'm so over it, man. Like I'm completely over it. But yeah,
I think it's really just depends on like what it is that you value. Like, for example, like it's kind of like, are you a traditionalist or are you somebody that is fond of evolution? Like, let's just
right.
say, and you know, I'm not against hitbox, but I can get where the other side is coming from, and they're like, let's just say, for example, Devin, you saw in that Brian F video, he showed the example of how perfect flash kicks come in handy to where he did Okuma's Air EX Fireball. And if you're playing on anything other than hitbox, it's hard to counter that, you know, because if you're somebody who is, you know, you got to go down, back, or down, then up, there's going to be a frame to where you have to be up. So either you're going to either be chipped or you're going to be forced to block, depending on how you do it. But if you're somebody with hitbox, it's instant. So you can instantly, you know, punish him for what he's doing. Let's just say it's grand finals, final round, final match, and that somebody finds themselves in that situation. Somebody that both of their lives is low. Okuma's like, okay, he's crouching. What I can do is I can abuse him with an EX Fireball. If that person is playing on a hitbox, once he jumps to do the EX Fireball and he hits the instant DP, it's like, oh, okay. I mean, you know, on hitbox, that's something that just can be done. So he took advantage of it, whatever. But if let's just say he did that on pad, and we all know how hard that is to do, the type of execution it takes and stuff like that, you would look at that more fonder than you would somebody who did it on the hitbox. They'd be like, bro, that's easy on hitbox. It's instant. It's almost like what somebody might say cheating in compared to what he would have to do. You know, so somebody who's like a traditionalist and like stuff how stuff used to be, they would be like, hey, like I respected more if he would have did it on pad and stuff than he did it on the hitbox. So I can kind of get where they're coming from. But at the same time, like this is just the way of the world. I mean, shoot, back in the day, you used to have to. You always, if you wanted to open the trunk of your car, you had to lift it. Now they just got you go and throw your foot on the back of the car and the trunk open. You know, so that's
Yep.
it's just the way of the world. Stuff is getting easier, more accessible. It's a reason why Tekken is saying right now that we're trying to make the game fun for everybody to play. You know,
Yep.
so it's just the way things are going. So stuff polarizing like this, hitbox or all button controllers with the SOCD is something that kind of challenges people's beliefs. Let's just say that, of how stuff should be in fighting games and stuff like that. So that's why you saw when Capcom came up with this, everybody came out of their holes, just praising Capcom for just being like, oh my gosh, you finally got rid of this trash controller. And there was a lot of people saying like, hey, if I can't have my shortcuts and stuff, I might as well go back to pad. There's no reason to just sit here and keep using the hitbox or all button controller. So I think I think there's always going to be a divide, and hitbox coming out and showing you that, hey, even if you got rid of, down plus up equals up, we still go come out on top. So I think it's it's just gonna be a divide always. Either you're with it or you're without, or you're not with it. It's just always gonna be like that. So
I think
Yeah.
it's weird because people play keyboard. Keyboard has been around for decades. Some people play. There are people in tournaments that have played with keyboards, and that's literally like the same thing, just minus the positioning. Like
Hmm.
you don't. I guess if you had total control of how you could like map your keys. But I mean, you got WSAD or whatever you use, and if you could like map F or V for the jump or C or like spacebar, that's
Yeah.
almost technically like a hitbox. And people have played
That's using
games
the
on
jump button.
keyboards. We had a game play. We had a guy win Guilty Gear on a wheel controller.
Yeah.
Granted, he wasn't actually doing this like that. He was just using like a regular controller, which still was like that's still kind of crazy. Um, but I guess the thing about that is you don't see hitboxes become like a staple now with like controllers. You don't, and it's much more readily available. It's much more marketable and easy to access with the consoles, especially than the keyboard. You just can't get a keyboard, hook it up to console and play like a fighting game with not to my knowledge
Right.
on PC, but not like a console. And also, it was the same thing with like arcade sticks. I mean, think about like you just said. You just mentioned Gold Lewis. Gold Lewis is a lot easier to do his inputs on with an arcade stick than a hitbox. Or I mean, well, I would just say I haven't played, but looking at a hitbox, I would say it's a lot more intuitive because he was like almost literally the character made for like an analog stick or arcade stick.
It's like one motion.
Um, yeah, I actually played him a little bit on D-pad, and it's like I've played D-pad so much, like doing those motions is not hard for me.
Yeah.
It's very similar to like Magneto's magnetic blast in the air. It's like a Hadoken upside down. You have to come from up, forward, forward, which is really a weird input. But once you get used to it, it's not that bad. At first, I was like, how do I wait? How do I do an upside down Hadoken? You want me to start from up and then up, forward, forward? Like what? But it's just like, and again, that's more intuitive with arcade stick, But so it's just like, I mean, that's one of the people that like the casuals and a lot of people used to, oh, they just see you with an arcade stick. Oh, you must be really good at the game. You using that? It's like people have said it on multiple occasions. Oh, you must be really good. You got one of those things. I'm like, I like to play it. I'm learning it. It doesn't make me like a better player just because you go and buy an arcade stick.
Right.
So again, that's the same thing with like the hitbox. It doesn't make you a better player per se until you get into it and learn it, and maybe like you can because you got to transfer your knowledge of the game. You got to transfer your muscle memory and not only transfer, but you have to transform your muscle memory from knowing how to do something on another piece of hardware to now learning how to be able to do it on a totally different piece of hardware. So yeah, I just thought that was weird. That was or not weird, but interesting at the fact that I just thought about keyboards. People played on keyboards.
Yep. But I mean, like, the thing about it is that if it was trash, nobody would care, right? Like, if Hitbox wasn't doing, like, if Hitbox was garbage, nobody would say anything. You know, the fact that it's pretty decent, and that is like the reason why. Oh man, now we got to say something about it. But here's the thing: if, like, let's say for the sake of argument, in like 30, 20 years, we decided that, you know what, we're just going to get rid of controllers altogether from now on. All of your what's called, it's like, or we're going to put on a helmet, and then you're just going to transfer your synapses through wires into the game, you know, and like, and it's only $300. Yep, it's a peripheral, and it's only $300. And you'd be like, what are you going to do? Be like, oh man, that's cheating, because, like, you know, you don't, because I mean, for me, like, sometimes it's kind of like, it's not necessary. Like we're talking about you know, inputs and stuff like that. I mean, what it comes down to, if you take away like the difficulty of inputting your inputs, what do you have left? The actual strategy, the actual skill difference between one opponent and the other. You know, when you like sweep away all that extra stuff that everybody's so obsessed with, that everybody really obsesses over, what it comes down to is like how good you are. I mean, if everybody's playing the exact same, if everybody was playing the best controller that you could possibly play, which gave you the most simple, like the best way to get the best inputs at the fastest rate, then what it comes down to is who's better. You know, who's better in that thing, like in that. You know, I mean, like Mr. Gaming Lift said, it doesn't make you even instantly good when you start playing Hitbox. Even if you become good at playing on Hitbox, that doesn't mean that you're instantly a good player. You know, even if you have the shortcuts, do you have the timing? Do you like know your command list well enough? Do you know any frame data? Like all of that, it puts more of a burden on your actual knowledge of the game when you start focusing less on how difficult an input is and more on what strategies you're using and how much you actually practice with the character. So I don't know, man. I'm more. I kind of like, you know, like I'm like I said, man. Like we can keep, you know, complaining about better controllers, or we can just like start making a shift. You know, it's kind of like when we complain about, oh well, I don't want to play on PC. I think we should just play on like PlayStation. It's like, but why? Like there's a better option available, but we're still like trying to play on PlayStation 4, which is just like like at this point, you know, I mean, at least move on to PlayStation 5. You know, I don't know. It seems like a lot. Oftentimes, like we're talking about like traditionalists and stuff like that. I understand that, you know, you like the old ways, but this is one of those situations, in my opinion, that the old ways definitely are not the best ways, man.
I mean, I'm gonna try to wrap this topic up because we passed 30 minutes in. But you know, I like Hitbox, and you know, there is the advantages of it besides people just saying like, "Oh my goodness, this dude cheating." Like, you know, there are people who literally like. I can remember playing fighting games back in the day, and I was somebody that would, you know, when I was young, I would play so much, your family members just be like, "Bro, you useless. All you do is play that game." You know, but you would get to a point to where like your hands would legit like, oh my god, like I can't handle, my hands can't just handle playing like this all the time. Like, you know, your skin rubbing off and stuff from all the motions you have to do on the D-pad so much. Back in the day,
Yep.
on them PlayStation 1 controllers, you used to literally want to play with your shirt. Like you put your thumb in your shirt and stuff like that when
Yeah,
you was on
man.
the D-pad, because it's like, bro, this man's just tearing the skin off my thumb.
Find out how rough those D-pads are real quick, man.
Yeah, so
Yeah.
shout out to Luffy, he a legend. But 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 he must have got like triple layered skin. But
Hmm.
you know, that stuff would hurt after a while. Like it hurt. And you know, there's people like, you know, Alex Myers came out and you know, he had, you know, a little medical issue with his hands. Like, you know, if it wasn't for all button controllers, he wouldn't have a career anymore, you know. Um I mean, and that's, and you know, it's just more than, and so I get when people say like the shortcuts are cheating and all this other stuff. But man, come on, like, you know, what are you gonna say? Like, I buy the game on PC, if I play it on keyboard, I'm cheating? Like
Yeah.
like that's what come on a computer. Like if you don't go and buy you a controller, you're cheating. Like, bro, like I mean, they made it for the keyboard. They have to have made it for the keyboard if they released it on PC, bro. Come on.